another episode of Reseller Evolution. I'm Scott.
And I'm Carl.
And we are on podcast number 9.
Number 9, Carl. Number 9.
No, number 9. It's, one away from 10. So we're almost up to 10. So.
Hey! And what's the topic this week, Scott?
Well, you know what? The topic this week is not going to be as good as next week's topic. But this week's topic is 5 items that were our best pick. And why is it not as good as next week? Because next week is our worst pick. And what's they say about negativity, Carl?
It brings in the viewers, damn it.
Yeah, everybody likes the negativeness.
Oh, man. Yeah, it works.
Negativity is so we can expect double the views from this week. So.
Oh, only 5 views next week.
But no, everything's it's going to be an interesting show for sure. So I got some really cool items I want to discuss. How about yourself?
I have some stand out from the last few years.
Yeah, nice.
It's amazing what kind of, like, for me, outside is out of mind. Besides to think of some of the stuff I've sold over the years, but no, it's good. So how's been your last week?
Extremely busy, and this week is going to be even busier. So I kind of put out a teaser, I think, on the last show, but what's happening is we have a film crew from out east. They're over here doing a film on they're doing it's almost like Antique Roadshow combination with Pawn Stars-ish. So people bring items in and we discuss it, and I've been asked to be a host for, I guess the actual term is professional. And people are contributors that bring items in, and the professional will kind of give them the rundown of what it is and what it's worth. And that's it. So I don't think I'm allowed to give out the show now. There's a lot of hush hush around it, but they are on season 7. So there are a number of shows out there. They're on season 7 as far as filming. As far as being aired, this year is season 5. So there's almost 2 years before mine will even come to on the air.
Still, Scott, the TV star over here, people, you should be privileged that he's taking his time out to give us his knowledge and expertise. No, I'm just teasing. This is so good. This is so great. Like, come on. Like, did you think you'd be doing something like this even a year ago, 2 years ago?
Well, I knew based on my looks and my charm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lucky this is radio. But yeah. No, honestly, it was kind of exciting. So I guess they were here last year, and they ended up in the antique store, and they were filming and stuff. And one of the guys that was involved quite heavily as far as looking for items for the show and that kind of thing, mentioned my YouTube channel. And this is according to them. They watched the YouTube channel and they reached out to me. And so you just never know. Like, it's a small channel, so I'm kind of surprised, but you just never know. Word of mouth, sometimes that kind of helps.
Yeah, connections are probably almost more important than anything else.
Yeah. So, anyways, so I'm doing 7. I'm presenting 7 items. Actually, I'm not presenting them. I'm the professional on 7 items, and it's very. It's not boring when I say this, but it's very cookie cutter. They have everything. Not so much a script, but they have ideas, and they got to be kind of presented in certain orders. You know what I mean?
Well, in other words, they're professionals at what they do.
They're pretty professionals. Two. They have one director, an assistant director.
Yeah.
They have 2 camera guys. They have people in the background, and then once they're done shooting this, it goes to the head office where there's people who are just going to do editing. The director doesn't even get involved in the editing.
Were you nervous doing this? It's kind of like you're under some pressure here to perform, so to speak.
I don't think I was really nervous. I mean, I've been nervous before, but I felt like I just wanted to make sure I did it right. You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't want to, I didn't want to do something that was wrong and stuff like that. But I mean, they ease you into it. So I spent a whole day watching it being done. So I was behind the scenes just watching someone else doing what I was going to do. Yeah. And she has been doing it for a number of years for this outfit. And she was great. She's very knowledgeable. And on my Sunday night live show, I hope to have one or two or many of these people on to the show as guests. So,
oh wow, I didn't know that.
yeah,
That's lots of fun.
Yeah. So the lady that's the professional here, she has her own store out east, and she goes out picking, and it almost sounded like she had some sort of maybe a smaller version of the Waterford Antique Market, which is quite large. So to be smaller isn't putting it down. It just means it's just what it is. But
yeah,
one of the things they can't fathom is first of all, how much is around here. Like when they walk to the store and they just see the endless amount of stuff available, and there's people, it's not just our store that brings people. Like they search Facebook Marketplace. They have other avenues of getting people to bring items in. I don't know all of them, but one of them was Facebook for sure.
Yeah.
And they just can't believe the knowledge and the items that are in this area. Like that's why they came back, and they'll probably be coming back next year as well. I mean, there's fairly large budget, so I'm assuming, because they all got hotel rooms and catering, and there's a number of them out here, and like all the equipment and everything is driven out here by.
That's spectacular. Driver. That's amazing.
Yeah. So I'm assuming if they're going to do it again next year, they'd like to come back here. So.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Today was this morning. I did my first item. And, I think it worked out okay, but I think I'll get better from now on. But once the editing's done, like it'll look so night and day from what you imagine it in your mind. So how was your week, Carl?
My God, how do I follow that up? So I sat at home and I had a nap and I went out once. Yeah. My week was fine. Like I was not a TV host. I didn't do very much. I've been listing all the big items in my death pile, and that's basically I can repeat that for a while. It feels really good just to get that stuff away because it clears out big spaces.
Yeah.
So I one of the big things I've been doing this week was I finally set up my consoles and I tested a bunch of Rock Band guitars. If people don't know, they're worth about 80 to 100 American each. But I like to test them first because they do sometimes not work. I had to actually throw out 2 out of the 8. So, which is fine because I only pay $6 for them. So I've been doing that. I went sourcing the other day. For me, sourcing has been really dry. I'm not sure. I mean, doing picking stuff up from Maxwell. They picked up a nice camera on the weekend, just around the block, which was kind of nice.
Yeah.
And sales have been slower, but that's fine. Like I'm not complaining. It was a good week.
Well, okay. So in that aspect of things, I had a pretty good week too. The booth is killing it. Like it is just, dude, I know. And I said this before, I sound like a broken record, but
this is a good broken record to have though.
It's a good broken record for sure. And it's been doing phenomenal. I actually got to listing a few items and, just sparking up my eBay store. I had 4 items go yesterday. I have 2 sales today to go out. So, I maybe took a day and a half and I put out 10 one day and maybe another 5 or 6 the next day as far as listings. So just a little bit of work on the eBay store actually boosted sales. And it just shows you got to keep listing, right?
You have to list because, like, let's be honest, like a lot of the stuff, when you hear people don't list, they don't sell. It's not just that they're not putting in new stuff. It's just that their old stuff just obviously would have sold right away if it had more appeal.
Yeah.
So I always find that, like, if I put up 10 items, 1 will probably sell overnight kind of stuff, maybe even 2. I don't really believe in the algorithm, but I do believe that putting fresh inventory out definitely is going to sell a lot better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's only a numbers game at the very end of the day. I mean, if you had 1 million items out there, you're going to sell more than if you had 10 items out there, right? Like it's just math.
And I do that math every month. I know basically what I'm going to sell every month, and it's usually pretty correct because what I do is I look to see how many items on average I sell for inventory numbers, and I just take that number and times it by how many I have at the beginning of the month, and usually it's about right. It's
okay.
There's some variation, of course. like especially for January and stuff. But it helps me remain focused. But yeah, I do keep an eye out on that number. But yeah, I'm glad to hear the booth is doing well.
And I had a great pick.
And wow, just
had a great pick. Like, yeah, we were some friends of ours, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just thinking this is going to be one of those ones where I'm just wasting my time, and it was a great pick. It was great. We're going to go back, and the money was right on. Yeah, so I even started doing some video that I want to edit and start getting some videos up. So it's just kind of one of those inspiring couple of weeks. It just I just feel refreshed and ready to hit the road running on all cylinders for all sorts of different things. So,
and the weather is going to be garage sales are coming quickly, and you'll have to get up early for videos.
I think next Wednesday is supposed to be plus 10.
Oh my gosh,
Celsius.
That is so crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy for sure. But all right, Carl. So let's get into the meat and potatoes today.
Right.
We have some items. We have favorite items. I'm probably gonna, and as of you're gonna miss some in the old memory bank. But I got 5 really crazy, unique items that I just wish people could see. And I do have most of these or all of these in my YouTube video bank. But it's hard to. Well, I'll try to describe it in language because this is an audio version, not a video version. But these are things that we no longer have.
No, these are things that sold. I might not quite remember the exact amount they sold for, so I'll just add a few $100s to the total and make myself feel better. No. I'll try to be accurate. But some of these things were from a few years ago and kind of almost represent a theme as much as individual items. Sometimes I feel people will show their home runs, but you'll never actually find that home run, But I think at least the stuff I picked either represents opportunity or something you might actually come across. It's not a zero chance.
Yeah, the ones I'm going to mention are probably ones I'll never see again. You know what I mean? They're kind of one-offs. They're the ones that stick in my mind.
Yeah.
There might be one here that I can think of quickly that I or two that I possibly could see again, but the other ones I probably won't. I miss them to the point where I almost wish I didn't sell them in some cases.
I have one of those, yeah.
But next week is the ones that I'm going to hang my head in shame. So you don't want to miss next week for sure. Though you got to do the good with the bad because there's lots of bad with the good, right? So you just have to double the bad with goodness, and you'll be in good shape, I think. But do you want to start first, Carl? You got your first item there?
So you actually just reminded me of an item by saying things you regret selling.
Yeah.
So I'll start with one of those. Dungeons and Dragons. That's my childhood. I was really into that stuff. I did not kill anyone. No, I did not forget what reality was. That's what was big at the time, though. And my dad even got worried about that too. And I was such a straight-laced kid. It's kind of funny. But anyways, when I first started thrifting, I was at the Value Village, and I was looking in the glass cabinet where normally I don't find too much. And then there was a white box. And the white box is the original Dungeons and Dragons set. And it was $25. I couldn't believe it. And I got so excited. And so I got them to get out. I don't even think I barely opened the box. I was probably shaking. And the worst thing is I have this white, this amazing find. And then we get a friggin' tornado warning on our phones. So everyone's phones are going, and it's oh my God, I'm going to have to put back this amazing find if they evacuate the store or something. So, instead of worrying about my life, I quickly went to the cash and bought this Dungeons and Dragons set. So this set is it's called the White Box. It's when they first started producing it, there's lots of different versions. And this was version, I think, number 7. And I got, I think, 450 American for it. I think it goes for 800 to 1,000 now.
Oof.
That's how much it's gone up. Now, I don't regret the money I could have got because at the time it was worth the 450. In fact, I got messages saying I was asking too much, which is always my favorite thing because that usually means I'm in the right ballpark when people are complaining about my prices. I more regret it because it's like, I should have kept it, because it's like I kind of collect D&D. I like that stuff, but sometimes you make the wrong choices. So I'm not saying you're going to go out there and find like the white box Dungeons and Dragons. They definitely undersold it, but Dungeons and Dragons in general, especially the older vintage stuff, is almost always a pickup. So yeah, that's what my first top pick.
Nice. Well, that's a good one to start off with. Like, I'm gonna hopefully in people's minds leave the best for last. So if that's your first item and you're doing the same thing, like that's a home run hit. I don't know if mine's that good to start off with. But you could also have reminded your dad that, you know, they used to think Elvis was the devil too, right?
So, oh yeah, rock and roll, and you can just go down the list of things that people thought is going to corrupt the youth. Each generation has their version of that.
Yeah. So
Harry Potter, I think that was the one after that.
Oh, Harry Potter for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So this one's kind of boring, especially when it comes to comparing with your first one there.
Well, that's a good way to sell it.
Yeah, well, but this was exciting to me because it was the first time that I really wasn't sure. I went with a gut feeling, and my feeling was, my concern was that I'm overpaying for this item. And my other concern was, is it legit? Right. This is something I sold to the booth, and it was big and it was heavy. And I saw on Facebook Marketplace, they're asking $200 for this large boat anchor. And it was a large boat anchor. It was probably 4.5, 5 feet tall. It weighed a lot. Right. And I went out and got it. And I tried to talk the guy down to it from it. It was $200. And it just looked old. And the story was behind it. It came off an old ship in Quebec, and it was found in a lake by a diver. So it was one of those things that I didn't know. I did not know. So I looked at it. The patina looked right. Everything looked right. If it was salt water, it would have disintegrated. It would have been all messed up. But it was fresh water. It was kind of cold, I guess. It was in Quebec. So anyways, long story short, it kind of looked right. The only problem I had with it a little bit is that it looked glossy. And what he did is he put a shellac on it to kind of preserve it. Right. But it really didn't take a lot from the look at all, but it's not in its original form. But anyways, you know what? I took a chance on it, and I put it in the booth, and I sold it for $800.
Oh, wow.
Because I had people look at it, not appraise it, but give their opinion on it. And it was cast, and they're like, "Wow, it can't be 1800s because," and that was the story too. It was from a ship from the 1800s, because they didn't do casting, like it's cast metal, like they wouldn't have done that for the ships. And I'm like, really? Like it's not something I could really look up, right? So, it's probably that. Yeah. So they're like, oh, it's worth about $200, $300. But eventually, I end up asking. It's just a matter of who I run into first, but I asked someone that I really trust, a mentor of mine. I really value his input. He thought it was a great buy for a great price, and he said $1,000. He said they did casting in the 1800s. He goes, so it could easily have came from them because they did do casting. And I'm going through my mind, and I'm kind of rambling on here, but in my mind, I'm like, trying to determine if my gut instinct was right. Like I kind of felt proud of this one.
Yeah.
So he said $1,000. He goes, where are you going to find one? It was huge. He goes, where are you going to find it? So I put $800 on it. I should have put $1,000. It sold within a week. Some developer came to the store, wanted it for decoration in his front yard, paid $800. No questions asked.
There's people with money out there, and then they want something unique. They want something interesting. They'll pay for it.
So I probably lost $200 because I didn't. You know, the guy, I really value his information. I kind of undercut a couple $100, but it sold very quickly. And it's one of those things that I just learned exactly what you're saying. There's people out there with money, and not only, okay, you could go try to find values and all this kind of stuff, but where are you going to find it? Like it just opened my eyes to a whole new way of looking at items when you're out there. And don't be afraid to pay up. You think you're paying up, but go with your gut. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you have to think about it from their perspective as the buyer. They don't know how much something is worth either.
And a lot of times they don't. That's
right. So they're going to go, well, if I spend that $800 on this thing, this decor, am I going to be happy? And let's be honest, you buy anything of that quality, that piece now, it's going to be at least $400, $500, $600 anyways.
Yeah.
So for them to spend the $800, you know, like I said, some of these people have money. That $800 is like $50 to them, you know, that sort of thing.
I could have probably put $1,500 in this guy, a developer, right?
Yeah.
It's my front yard, $1,500, no problem.
He probably just drops that as he goes outside the house.
Yeah.
You know, you bring up a good point though, of if you don't know the value of something and it's unique, try high, because I've done that where it's like I've gone like I'm 50% higher than I think it's worth, but it's so weird and it's sold overnight, and it's like like did I undersell it, or did the right person just happen to come across it, or like the dreaded 5-minute sale, you know, that happens too.
What's your second item?
Okay, so speaking of a quick sale, so this is one I just finally listed. It was in my death pile, but basically these Sony night vision cameras. And I'm bringing this up because I've sold these a few times, and these stand out because if you see night vision on a Sony camera, they can be worth $150, $200. And that's what happened. I put it up for $200. I couldn't find the exact model number, and boom, it was gone within at least half an hour. It was gone. It was gone to one of these camera refurb places. And who knows? It might have been worth a bit more. Well, obviously, they're probably refurbing it. They're probably going to get $400 or $500 for it. But you will find these, especially these Sony night visions. You'll see them like sometimes in auctions, or occasionally you see them at garage sales, and people don't realize that, even though it's like, because they're old, they're using old tapes, but they're definitely worth your time. They're not that hard to test, as long as I really like it when it has the battery and especially the charging cable, and then I'll just buy them. So yeah, not as much fun maybe as the boat anchor or the D&D, but a really good thing that I've found a few times. So they are findable, and like I said, I just listed and sold it this week.
Nice.
What's your next one?
Number 2. This one I found in a garbage pick. And this is, I've told this story before, that during COVID, people couldn't do yard sales, thrift stores were closed. And we had a situation around here where they were doing bulk pickups. So you could take stuff, people were at home. They couldn't go to work or anything. So they're cleaning out the garage, their basement, whatever. And they're just throwing a ton of stuff at the side of the road. Yeah. And so I was going around, we were picking up everything. Like we were just, whatever we can grab, fill the truck up, bring it home, go back out there. We were just grabbing everything. And I grabbed a bunch of toys, and in the toy lot was this bag. And, I kind of, like I said before, I can't remember to take the garbage out or empty the dishwasher or anything like that. But when it comes to items, that's where my memory is. You know what I mean? And so I'm not saying I'm super smart and I remember everything, because I don't. Steph will tell you that. But
selective memory is usually what it's called.
It's very selective for sure. But anyways, I remembered I was watching a YouTuber and they were talking about muscle men. And, and I remembered, oh shoot, I got those things in a bag in the garage. Like we picked that up. So I went and I found it. It didn't take me long, and I found it. And anyways,
Scotty, was it me? Was it me who told you about Muscle Man? No,
it was actually the Auction Professor.
Oh, damn! Because I remember talking about those with you too. I thought I was going to claim your find there, but
yeah, well, I mean, I learned a lot from you too, Carl. There's no doubt. But at the same time, this one I know for sure was the Auction Professor, and he was going through, and there was one there they had for like $300. It was, there was a couple that were worth a lot of money. Yeah. So I thought, well, I'll go check it out. But inside there was a Monster in the Pocket, which is different. It was a neon pink.
Yeah.
So I grabbed it, and it was about 3 or 4 years. I could go back, and the only one I saw that sold was 3 or 4 years, and they sold for like $70 US or something like that. So I thought, I'll throw it up there for next. I'll put a little bit on there. 70 US is about 100 Canadian. So that was a few years ago. So I put it for 135, and I woke up the next morning. Like I probably listed 11 o'clock at night. Well, I got up in the next morning and it was sold. And the guy gave me a 5-star review. This was on eBay. It might have been Etsy actually at the time, but regardless, it was a 5-star review. And he was like so happy that I got it.
Yeah,
I think it had 25 as a number on it, but it was half man, half horse, like a Senator.
Yeah.
And the neon pink was the one that was worth the money, and it was the rarest. And that I haven't checked it out, but that could be worth $200-300 today. You know what I mean? So, but I mean, I learned something new, and it sold quick. And I mean, it's the size of a couple of quarters. Like there's no size to it. It's like for $135, man. I was pretty happy with that.
I haven't found the exact model, but I have found those like within recent, like the last 6 months. I've found variants of those. You'll find them in the baggy wall. And sometimes they don't look like anything. They just look like a cheap plastic toy.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. Yeah. So that's number 2. What's your number 3?
Okay, so this is from a while ago. I picked up an auction, and it was called Full House board game, and this was sealed, and this is way back when. And what I liked, I think, I can't quite remember what I sold it for. It was up there. I think it was maybe 300, 250, something like that. New sealed. The used ones sell for 100. So when you see a sealed game, they're almost always worth checking out. But if you can find like a sealed Pokemon or Master Trainer or something like that, like we're talking $400, $500, $600. Anyways, I picked it up, and I think this was the case of no one was willing. This was through Max Sold. I think no one was willing to pay. I think I paid $50 maybe for it of a new old game. Like, who's going to pay that? But I was willing to pay it. It was one of my earlier buys off Max Sold, and I think it was 300, something like that. It was just different, and like it kind of got me into board games and I still look for board games. I'm a little more fussy now in terms of like condition, but if I see something that looks like it's rare but also might have a nostalgia feelings for it, I'll pick them up. And yeah, they're big. They can be a bit of a pain to ship because they don't have a standardized size for board games at the time, so you might have to Frankenbox something to put it together. But yeah, it was just fun. I like, it's one of those things that gives me a bit of joy, is these old board games. Even though I'm not playing them, I get the appeal of why someone will want to have these.
And that's a good example of something I learned from you. Because I also picked up during that COVID period of time, I also picked up one that was open. It wasn't sealed.
Yeah.
But I learned that it was valuable because of you, Carl, watching I think at the time you had told me, I don't think you were doing videos, but you had told me at that time or something. But regardless, you had told me that that was a good board game. Maybe you saw it behind me and you're asking me or something. I think you saw it on a shelf during one of my videos, and you commented.
I think there was something like that. I think you said something like, I have one of those games.
Yeah.
I was probably spamming your, like, this was early on before we
really knew
trying to get to know each other, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I was spamming your chat or something, saying I picked up this amazing find probably. And you're like, I have one of those.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even know what it was. It was just free.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
They're
definitely findable. They're definitely findable. Like I picked one up from a flea market, antique market, actually, from a vendor, and I think I paid $20 at most, and I got 80 for it. So they are all out there. They're Canadian board game, but there's a lot of things like that if you know, like there's some. I have to research it again because I've forgotten, but there are some weird monopolies out there that are worth money. There's some weird, even I think the Simpsons. There's some good board games out there from them, where 99% of it's not valuable, but there is that 1% that you have a chance of actually picking up.
Yeah, and I think with that Full House one, there's a card dispenser or something.
Yeah,
and that piece is usually missing.
Yeah,
it's still value. There's still value in the game, but if you have that piece alone, so if you don't have a full game set, but you have that piece, you can probably get what, $50 or something just for that one.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's quite $50 now, but
right.
It's something into that range. Would you agree?
Yeah, I haven't really looked up that, but I definitely, in fact, I was just doing that this week, is I will keep around old board games that were not complete to make other ones complete. I 100% do that. Like, For Pokemon Master Trainer, which is a used game, is about 150 to $200. Often they'll be missing pieces, and so I'll keep one copy around that had, for parts. It's obviously not complete, and then I'll use that to make other ones complete. So when I pick up some board games, I'm not going to be as worried if it has all the pieces, as long as it has the key pieces, and because I know I can make it up, and it's worth my time, especially for these valuable ones, just to keep in my storage somewhere, spare set.
And for anybody out there listening, Full House, it's not based on the TV show. This is a whole different game all on its own, and it's kind of based on a 70s kind of theme. It's very colorful, and you'd have to look it up and just type in eBay, just put Full House. But if it's the one with the TV show, that is not the one we're talking about.
No. Yeah, so I didn't think of that. But yeah, there's a few nostalgia ones like that. I think it's a Canadian game too, but like I said, there's so many board games out there that kind of you should keep an eye out for.
I think it's kind of based on like renters and people that own the properties and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Something like that. Okay, so my third item is it's one of those things out there where I've kind of dabbled in taxidermy a little bit. This is kind of, I guess, taxidermy, but it's the whole story. This story, I love this story. I love telling this story. Yeah. And I may even had someone get divorced because of this incident. So regardless, we'll keep going here. I went to a yard sale. It was a town-wide yard sale. And so if you can imagine that, there's multiple people on the same street having a yard sale. I go to one place, and this is when I was first relatively new to reselling, maybe a year or two into it. And I would always ask if they had taxidermy. So I went, because I could put that in my antique booth. And I remember going to this place out near Welland, I think Thorold actually, and near just south of Niagara Falls. And I asked if they had any taxidermy. And they said no. So, because the neighbors are having yard sales, the husband kind of walked across the street and moseyed on over to his neighbors and started talking. And the wife's like, "We have a bearskin rug. I want $30 for it. And you better take it before he gets back because he won't let it go."
Oh my God.
And the first thing out of my mouth was, "Would you take 20?
Scotty.
Yeah, I know, eh?
Taking advantage of a
rug, and I'm still trying to get it down lower. So I said, she goes, "No." She goes, "And you better take it before he gets back because he will not let it go." She goes, I hate that thing. So I said, "Well, I'll take a look at it, but I'd be very interested." So she sent her son, who was probably around 14, 15 years old. He went downstairs, got it, because she said it was downstairs, so that's how I know he went down there. But anyway, he went into the house, grabbed the bearskin rug, brought it out, and this thing was beautiful. It was a smaller black bear, and great shape. It had red underneath, so it kind of put a date of the 70s just based on the style with all that red and everything. But the mouth, the head, the feet, the claws, this thing was mint. It was so good. And so I gave her $30, and she goes, "Thank you. That thing is so ugly. I hate it." And she goes, "But you better get out of here before he comes back." So I just put it in my car, and I couldn't squeal out of there fast enough to get out of there.
God,
I know. So they're probably divorced, and I apologize if they happen to be listening. I sold that sucker. I put a high price on it, which really wasn't a crazy price. I put $500, but I ended up selling it for $350.
How big was the husband?
I could take him. Don't worry.
You can take him. Okay, that's a different story then.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it was. Although he's a hunter, so
yeah, he's already has the trophy.
Maybe not, eh? I'll have to edit that part out just in case he's listening. But no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so I don't know. Is that shameful? At the time, I was like, hey, she wants it gone. If it's not me, she's selling it to someone else. Right. So
yeah, I that's not you pressuring her to sell something that her husband wants to keep.
Yeah. They told me no. I was fine with the answer no. Yeah. Right. I go, okay, let's keep looking. But yeah, I don't know. It was something there. That's funny. It's kind of one of my favorite stories to tell.
I'm not sure how I'd feel if my wife sold some of my stuff that I really liked while I just happened to be out of the house. But every relationship, I guess, they had their unique relationship.
I think more than taking, like, I paid for it, but buying the rug kind of. Did I break guy code? Maybe I broke guy code. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I'm just curious what happened when he went home and is like, "Hey, where's my rug?
Yeah, where's my rug?" Exactly. But anyway, so there you go. That was my third item. What's your fourth, Carl?
So my fourth one, Moorcroft vase. Now I found this one in a thrift store in Canada here. And it's funny, this thrift store in Canada, often I have found really good stuff on there, but I rarely find stuff that's always highly valuable. But it just screamed at me literally when I walked by. Well, it wouldn't even scream. It was just like, it was so obvious to grab, because a Moorcroft is a very, the style is very recognizable. And then I put that one in my death pile for a while. And then it was funny on Two Dog Digs channel. My friend on there, Rick, had a really cool pumpkin cookie jar that he hadn't listed. So we came up offline. I think we both said, well, if you list that cookie jar, I'll list my vase. And damn it, it was great because he didn't list it for such a long time, and he used my excuse not to list this death pile item. And finally he did it, and it's like, oh, damn it. I put it up. It took a while. It took like almost a year, but I got like, I forget, $450 or something American for that. You can bet I double boxed that, and the customer was so happy. Yeah. And like, this was just a case of not having skills. It's just a case of being in the right place in the right time. It was also a case of not knowing exactly how much to ask, because it was signed on the bottom, and I eventually figured out who that was. But there's such a range on that stuff. I just asked for the moon, and yeah, it stayed on my store for a good year, I guess, but eventually went, and I got top dollar for it and was really happy. And it's like, it had a nice place on my shelf until it sold. So I took a page out of Harry's book, actually, Harry Humstone, where he will have the stuff he picked, the stuff he really likes, he'll display in his personal collection, put it up for sale, and if it sells, then, well, he just replaces it with something else. So yeah, no, it's good. It was
nice. Yeah, that's a great find. Like, to be able to pick that out of a thrift store, like,
it somehow it passed the people in the back. It passed their manager. And went on the shelf. I was like, it was $15 or something. Like, it wasn't like
right.
We priced it high.
And it almost sounds to me like it was on a journey to go somewhere to hit a certain destination, and that's how it got there, because that sucker should have been broke. You know what I mean? They should have been cracked.
Oh, yeah. It should be damaged. It should all this stuff happen. It's amazing, because like the people in the back, they're great, right? But I'm sure they're not as careful as they should be. You hear if you're in there, you'll hear smash.
That's all you hear. Yeah.
Occasionally, it's like, and this is probably the case of like some kid, like he has no idea or she has no idea what this thing is. There's like, oh, it's grandpa's old ashtray. Like, it's like, I put $15 on it and put it out there. So they don't catch everything.
No, for sure. And sometimes it sounds a little bit corny, but sometimes I think things are on a certain journey and they have to end up a certain place. You can be spiritual about it or whatever you want, but my next item here, I kind of feel the same way. Like, it has to end up a certain place for whatever reason. I think sometimes we end up doing that, and sometimes we look a little bit too much and frown too much on the downside of things. But it's all a journey, and maybe it gets us to somewhere better. You know what I mean? So I don't want to get too much into that, because I know that can, be kind of boring to some people. But these 3 uniforms were by a pilot. He was in the Royal Canadian Air Force, and I was sent there on a private pick. Someone knew someone that knew me, and she has set us up with other picks in the past. So she set us up with this pick. And I get in there, and there's 3 flight suits from the 80s, 70s, 60s. This guy was a flight engineer, And he flew on the Hurricane. He trained people on the flight simulators. You know, he had a very extensive, long career in the Air Force. So, anyways, I picked a lot of stuff out of this house. I was a little bit disappointed because some of the, like, there were heavy smokers. So there was a lot of smoke damage. So a lot of things I had to pass on just because of that smoke thing. But I can't pass on these uniforms.
No.
So I wasn't sure what to do. Do I put them individually online or whatever? So what I ended up doing is I put 2 in the booth. I kept 1 at home. And the whole idea was once it aired out and I felt it was good without the smoke, I was going to put the other one on eBay. And if it sold before the other 2, I'd bring one home. And if the other 2 sold first, blah, blah, blah. So all of a sudden, I'm there working one day. I had to be there to work because Stephanie was busy, or it was just a busy day. So they asked me to come in, one or the other. And regardless, it doesn't matter. A guy came in and he wanted to buy both uniforms. But because I was working there, I said to him, I said, hey, I have another uniform by the same guy. So he wanted that, right? So he bought 2 of them right there.
Yeah.
And then we exchanged phone numbers. He messaged me to ask if I had other stuff. And I did. I had it would be like a dinnerware uniform. You know what I mean? So it was more of a suit type thing, but it had all the patches. I had a jacket. And I think there was one other thing. So I did very well. I sold all these and I give him a little bit of discount on the first 2 items. Not that he asked for it. But his story was, he showed me on his phone, he's a collector of pilot uniforms, Canadian pilots. He had the snowbirds. He had a couple other things. And he says, just to let you know that this is going to a good home. And when I pass away, these are being donated to the museum. And he already has that set up. Yeah. He lived far away from here, like a couple hours. I think he was from maybe Kingston area or something. So anyways, he said, we'll exchange phone numbers. He was interested in seeing the other things. I was working that day, but he was coming back in a couple of weeks. So anyways, he ended up coming to the house and so everything got paid for. I made more profit on top of that. Now that profit sort of matters, but my bottom line, like, it does matter. Don't get me wrong. But in this case, I just felt like this guy represented Canada, the Royal Canadian Air Force, and he fought in the Gulf War and things like that. Like, I just, he was part of protecting Canada, however you looked at it. He was, and I just felt that these got to the place they had to get to. These are the place they were meant to be. And he was telling me the breakdown. Like, each uniform would have represented a different era. So this guy would have got a uniform because he was in 3 eras. And he was saying there was one more era that I think it was the earlier one that he wanted. I'm not exactly 100% sure to that, but it was something, I'm pretty sure it was the one before that he wanted that era. And he was so happy. And the fact that they all belonged to the same guy was even better to him. So anyway, just something that kind of stands out. And it was a good buy and it was a good sale. And I think it got to where it had to go.
Oh, it's always fun when there's like a bit of history or a bit of purpose behind what we're selling. It's like we all remember. I remember once I sold something not expensive, but like a vintage mid-century modern telephone, and I went to like some type of playhouse down in the United States. Or the time I sold a CD player, and they told me it was going to be used in the Flash TV show and stuff like that. It makes it a little more fun.
Okay, Carl, what is the last and final item for you?
So the 5th one is the most boring one, but it's also the most valuable one. So I picked up from Maxsold again a huge lot of filter papers that they use in science. And I paid up. I paid $140. But the reason I paid up is it was a huge box of these things, all different sizes. But most importantly, they're all sealed. And when I comped them, I looked up 1 or 2, and it's like each individually sell for $40 American for just one little box. And there's a huge box load of the things.
Wow.
So I was willing to spend, I think, $350 or something for the auction. And I got only for $150, which was still, much higher than I normally pay for one buy like that. And I tell you, as boring as those filter papers are, I've made thousands. I've made at least $2,000 on that buy.
Nice.
On these boring things. But the best thing about these boring things is that they were easy to ship. You just like they're all individually sealed. The photographs were amazing. There's demand for them, and I'm almost out. I'm almost sad to see them go because it was just one of those buys that just kept paying you off over and over and over and over again. It's like, oh, there's another $50. And after a couple of years, I'm finally down to the last few. So yeah, sometimes the most boring stuff can be the financially best stuff, especially in terms of time. There's no time involved, which is also something I really enjoyed. So yeah, that's my final one. But yeah, I'm comfortable saying was thousands.
So all these little boxes you would have sold individually, did they look the same as the others? Meaning, if you were to list one, you could just put quantity of however and let it ride.
That's right. Now they all didn't look exactly the same. They all had the same front, but they might have had like different things on the plastic or whatever. I didn't really worry about that because no one who's buying this is buying it for collectible reasons.
Right.
They're buying it to be used. And there were lots of different variants and stuff like that. But really, yeah, I had quantity on all of them, and yeah, I only ever had one return, which was I think they didn't know what they were doing. To be honest, it's like these are pretty. They said, "Oh, it doesn't fit our machines." Well, okay, it's a pretty standard size, but whatever. I took them back, and I immediately sold them like the next day back out again.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, that was my final one. What's your fifth?
Kind of in a bulk buy situation too. This was one thing where another vendor had a situation where he was running the estate, and he invited me in for a private pick, and it was one of my most favorite, memorable picks of all time, for many reasons. But one of the reasons was a complete library, a personal library, not a public library, but a personal one.
Yeah.
In a fairly good sized room, and most of the books were early 1900s, late 1800s. And there was over 3,000 books in total throughout the house. And the deal was I could have them all for $1,000, but I have to take every single one. I couldn't cherry pick and leave stuff behind. I had to clear them all out of the house. And
I remember this. This is when I think I told you not to pay more than 25 cents a book.
Yeah, I think Adam told me not to pay more than 10 cents. And you said
Adam said 10 cents. I said 25 cents. Yeah. You didn't take our advice, though. Scotty Pays Up was a rare event.
Yeah, but it was like, I mean, here's my thinking.
Right.
I would have been willing to pay up to $2,000. And the reason this is because everything in that house, and I saw maybe a quarter of what was actually in the house because everything was starting to go to auction. Yeah. There was a few things that they wanted to sell off. They were willing to sell off without going to auction because the auction there was just so much stuff in the house. It was kind of, the auction house was full. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so there were some things boxed, some things already gone. But what I was able to see was fantastic stuff, like incredible stuff. Like I bought more than just books, but the books was one, like it was one of the bigger deals because I had to take them all. It took me 3 trips. It was almost an hour drive, 45-minute drive. Took me 3 trips, filled the truck up complete, like front seat, back seat, the whole box in the back. Like it took me 3 trips, and it was a lot of work. Like it was a lot of backbreaking work.
Books are heavy too.
Yeah, and I thought like these were old books. I don't really know nothing about books, so I'm going to learn about books. But on the other hand, if the books represented anything collectability wise that everything else in the house did, and these people had money, I'm thinking there could be some very interesting books here.
It's a good clue, isn't it? When you see a house, like I noticed this with estate sales, like you'll look at the pictures of the estate sale before you go, and you can just see a few quality items. Then you know it's probably worth your time, because if you see a few quality items, that means they're willing to spend money. It's not going to be just full of Walmart crap or dollar store crap, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I get into these houses, they're usually older. It's because someone's passed away. So because they're in their 70s, 80s, or 90s, a lot of stuff had been brought with them. But these guys were actually collectors. And not only were they collectors and wealthy, but they were travelers. They were very artist kind of like mindset, right? Like
Mhm.
the woman, she drew her own thing. She kind of dabbled into some writing, but everything was like kind of artsy. Like they were really like, I don't know if you would call them 60s hippies at one point. You know what I mean? But they
Yeah.
had that, like some of the books in there were hippie books. Like, and those turned out to be very valuable. They're $60 to $100, and some are a little bit more. And I think I had about 10 of them, but probably 6 or 7 of them sold very quickly. And I still have a couple. But they were like kind of hippie almanacs, but it was survival kind of crazy situation guides, and it was all mixed in there. But I mean, okay, so let's just break it down. Was there exactly 3,000 books? There was probably a little bit more. Some were volumes, but I put a map book, and I knew that it had some value because it's local to our area, and it was from the late 1800s, and it was a book on the Hold'em and Norfolk maps. And I put $280, and I put it on Facebook Marketplace, knowing that they sell for around $200. A guy offered that, came down here. When he got here, I told him about some other books here. I had researched some books here, so I knew kind of what they were worth. At the end of the day, he took 4 books and then a small box of 24 kind of really smaller books. And those are what we agreed on. He was a book appraiser for a couple libraries, and he was a retired teacher, and he was a book collector. So he knew what he was getting into, and that's what he bought. So what we first did is we agreed on 3 books, and a 4th book. I said, I found this book to be worth about $2,000. He said, I'm not going to pay $2,000 for that book, but let's make a deal on these here, and we'll come back to that one. So the 3 books and the volume of 24, we agreed on $1,100. And the one book that I thought was around $2,000, he paid me $900 for that book, and he took everything for $2,000. So right off the bat, I paid for all the books. I got $1,000 in my pocket, and I've been selling books ever since. And
Gravy train.
I take some to auction. I put some in the booth. I can't believe how good some of the books are selling in the booth. And I put some online. So anything kind of $60 or higher, mostly around the $100 mark. But if they're in good condition, worth $60, you know, I'll put them online. And the other kind of stuff I've been putting in the booth. And it's just paying all the time. Like, if you look at my record in the booth, I'm selling 10, 15 books a week. Right? But anywhere from 5 to 10, some for 15. I have sold a couple in the $35 to $50 range, but the majority are, $5 to $15. And I do sell some on eBay as well.
Yeah.
And up to $250 is kind of, probably the max. I have some listed in the $400 or $500 range. And I probably got through about a third of the books.
You're willing to put the work into it of moving all that stuff. You're willing to come up with the upfront cost. You're willing to take everything as well. I think that was a bit, you said they didn't want you to cherry pick.
Right.
So that was kind of good in the end too, because you probably got things so much cheaper, but you also got nice surprises too, which is kind of fun, when you look up a book and you're like, what's this? And say, oh, this is like a $200 book.
Yeah. If I was told to cherry pick, I would have been there for days because there's no barcode. You're not scanning barcodes. You'd have to look every single one up. The way it was done was probably the best for both worlds. It was best for them, and it was best for me. And it's one of my most memorable picks because I learned so much too. So awesome. That's my number 5.
Hey, those were all great. I hope everyone enjoyed those diverse items we found and we like to do. And it's like, if I had thought of it, there'd be some other stuff as well. But next week, we had to find 5 of our worst. Is that what we're doing for next week?
5 of our worst picks. Yes, 5 of our shame. We hold our head in shame.
Okay, I'll have to think about those.
Yeah. I don't have to think too hard. I'm sure there's. Oh my God, what did I do? But no, that's that's something for next week, and I hope everybody comes and next week and listen to that show too.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah, thanks. And we're here every we go on Spotify and on YouTube. We upload a new audio recording every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So check us out, hit the subscribe button, and most importantly, Carl, what do you want them to do?
I want them to like and subscribe.
Leave a comment.
And leave a comment. Got me. Yes, leave a comment. Any topics that you want us to discuss, that'd be great as well. But we do love the comments.
We love the
comments. Everyone. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Carl. Thanks, guys. And we'll see you next Friday.
Bye, everyone.